We all think we know the story of David and Goliath, right? The small shepherd boy, the giant, the slingshot. But the real story, it's about so much more than just that. It's about a huge shift in perspective that literally changed the course of a nation. It's about completely redefining what it even means to be strong. So what really went down in that valley? Let's dive in and find out.
Okay, so picture this. We're in the Valley of Elah. You've got two massive armies just stuck. A total stalemate. And every single morning, from the Philistine side, this champion named Goliath walks out. And I mean, this guy is a walking mountain of bronze and muscle. His challenge just echoes across the whole valley. It's a daily dose of pure psychological warfare.
And the response from the entire army of Israel? Crickets. Nothing. Just absolute, deafening silence. And look, this wasn't just them being cautious. This was total paralysis. They were under a psychological siege. I mean, even their king, Saul, a guy who built his entire reputation on being a warrior, was completely defeated, and not a single sword had even been drawn.
And this is really where our story kicks off. You've got a whole nation and its army held hostage, not by chains or walls, but by the sheer terror that this one man inspires. They were totally trapped in a story where they'd already lost before the fight even began.
So let's look at the matchup, because this is the heart of the whole thing. It's the incredible mismatch that had them all frozen in fear. On one side, you've got Goliath. He's basically a walking fortress of bronze and iron, a total pro at close-quarters combat. And on the other side, David, the youngest of 8 boys, a shepherd, whose best weapon is a simple sling. I mean, by any normal way of looking at it, this isn't even a fight. It's a foregone conclusion.
So who is this kid? Who is this guy who thinks he can just show up and succeed where an entire army has failed? Well, to really get a handle on David, you gotta look past the battlefield. We have to go into the wilderness. See, he wasn't just a shepherd. He had this secret history of unbelievable courage that pretty much nobody knew about.
See David's confidence? It didn't come from any kind of military training. Nope, it was forged out there, in the lonely fields, just protecting his father's sheep. And while he was guarding that flock, he didn't just fend off a few predators. We're talking about him facing down and defeating lions and bears. That's where he learned more than just courage. He learned strategy. He learned how to use speed, agility, and pinpoint precision against an opponent that was way, way stronger and more ferocious.
And this right here, this just shows you how much of an outsider he really was. When David tries to tell his own dad about these incredible life-or-death victories, he just gets dismissed. His father literally thinks he's making up stories to sound impressive. Can you imagine? He was completely underestimated, even by the people who were supposed to know him best.
Okay, so now David shows up on the scene of this huge national crisis, but he's not there as a warrior. Nope, he's just a delivery boy. His dad sent him to bring some food to his older brothers who are serving in Saul's completely terrified army.
But when David gets there and he hears Goliath's taunts, he sees something totally different from everybody else. The soldiers, they see this unstoppable killing machine. They see his strength. David, he sees an arrogant bully who's defying his God. Where they saw an impossible obstacle, he saw an opportunity. It really is all about perspective, isn't it?
So naturally, when David starts asking around, hey, why isn't anyone fighting this guy, and then suggests that he should do it, the reaction is just immediate scorn. I mean, his own eldest brother Eliab publicly humiliates him, tells him to stop being silly and go back to his sheep before he gets himself killed. To his family, he's still just the little brother who doesn't know anything.
But, word travels, and David's talk eventually gets to the ears of a very desperate King Saul, who calls for this unlikely volunteer. And this meeting is absolutely pivotal. This is the moment where the old way of thinking, the conventional wisdom of war, comes crashing right into a radical new approach. Saul, he's trapped in that conventional mindset, so he does what any king would do. He offers David the absolute best protection he has, his own personal armor. We're talking a heavy bronze helmet, a tunic made of mail, a huge, heavy sword. These are the tools for a champion, right? For a champion's duel. But David puts it on, and he can barely even move. He recognizes immediately that this armor isn't a strength, it's a death sentence. It would just make him a slow, heavy target. So he says no. He rejects these traditional symbols of power, and instead he chooses his own tools. A simple shepherd's staff, his familiar sling, and 5 smooth stones from a stream. See, he's not just choosing faith here. He's choosing to fight this battle on his own terms, with speed, distance, and precision.
And so, the stage is set. A young shepherd, armed with what basically looks like a child's toy, starts walking out into the valley. He's heading straight for the heavily armored giant who has held an entire nation hostage with fear. And you can just imagine, both armies are just watching in stunned silence.
Goliath sees David, and he's not scared. He's insulted. He feels like they're mocking him. I mean, he came out looking for a duel between warriors, and the Israelites sent him a boy. All of his taunts are about physical weapons, about earthly power, because honestly, that's the only kind of power he understands.
But David's reply, it just completely reframes the entire battle. He declares, hey, this isn't a contest of muscle versus muscle. This isn't even David versus Goliath. He says it's Goliath versus the God of Israel. What a move. He's taking all the focus off of his own physical weakness and putting it squarely on his true source of strength. Then David starts running towards the giant, closing the distance. He places a stone in his sling, and with this one single practiced motion, he lets it fly. And after all that fear, all the speeches, all the buildup, it takes just one single stone. It strikes the one unprotected spot on Goliath's forehead, and the giant comes crashing to the ground. And with that one shot, the spell is just broken. The psychological hold is gone, the battle is won, the Philistines run, and a shepherd boy becomes a legend. But the story's real impact, its real power, doesn't end there in that valley, not by a long shot. It has echoed down through what, 3,000 years?
I mean, think about it. The story is so embedded in our culture that it's actually an idiom in our language. When we call something a David and Goliath situation, everybody knows exactly what you mean. It's that classic conflict where a seemingly powerless underdog takes on a mighty foe against what feels like completely impossible odds.
And really, that's what we're left with. The reason this story endures isn't because it was some lucky shot. No way. It's about courage, it's about faith, and it's about the profound power of just looking at things differently. It teaches us that giants, well, they aren't always as strong as they look, and that underdogs have strengths that are often invisible. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? What are the giants we face in our world today, and where are the Davids?